Hey Spookaroos, it's your host Eric D here, and if you hear my voice before you hear the theme song, that usually means I'm introducing a remix episode, or I'm here to apologize for some kind of technical issue that you might hear in the episode, but I'm happy to report that this time, neither one of those things are true. I'm just here to tell you that this episode, which I recorded with Brian Reed, one of the hosts of the new-ish podcast, Halloween is Forever, went much longer than I thought, because you know what? Brian, as I suspected from the podcast that he runs and also the Instagram account that they run over there, we were simpatico and we just had a good time talking to each other, and the conversation went on about an hour longer than I had planned for. So you're actually getting a two-parter, which is good news for you guys, because it means there's no remix episode next week. We're gonna go right from this new episode into part 2 of this episode, which will be another new episode. And then for the whole month of October, we're doing all new episodes, no remix episodes. That's how we're going to make October special. But for now, go ahead and enjoy part 1 of my interview with Brian Reed from Halloween is Forever. Welcome to Spooky Times with Eric D. I am your Eric D. And tonight, in a rare treat, I actually have a guest. Now, a guest is different than a guest host, because a guest is someone that I don't know in real life. In fact, I met this man just moments ago. And not even in real life, but just through the wonders of Zoom, which we've all become so accustomed to in the past year and a half. So this is my new friend, Brian Reed.
Hey.
And Brian is here because he hosts his own podcast. And of course, you know, I'm not trying to drive my listeners away from me and over to you, but there's enough time in the world. You guys can listen to more than one podcast.
Yeah. Hey, more spooky content. It's good for all of us, right?
Exactly. So Brian's podcast is called Halloween is Forever.
Yep.
And with a name like that, you know we're going to get along fine. but also we've been following each other on Instagram for a little while, and you know, you see the posts and everything and you're like, yeah, this is my tribe, man. I know this guy.
Yeah. I'm just looking at our, like I said, we just met on Zoom and we popped up on the screen, and your background looks remarkably similar to my background in that we have horror, Halloween, toys. These are all things that I love too. So
totally.
It's pretty fair to say we share a significant amount of spooky ooky interests.
Yeah, I don't have my current Monster Cereal boxes up. Yeah. I can't find Monster Mash anywhere in my area.
Yeah,
and trust me, I've looked.
I just started seeing it pop. So I was looking like crazy when it first came out. So I saw, you know, some people on social media posting about it that live in like the New York, New Jersey area, and I live in Western Pennsylvania, which is not terribly far to the west, about 5 hours west of that. So I started running around looking. One day I went to like 10 different like grocery stores. Couldn't find it. And then a couple days later, Steve, who's one of my co-hosts on Halloween is Forever, sent me a picture, and he was at a Walmart and he saw it. And he said, hey, do you want me to grab you some? And I was like, grab me all of it. So he grabbed me like 4 boxes. So I'm a big fan. I'm looking on my other wall over here, and I have a whole bunch of patches of the various mascots from the Monster cereals. It's a lifelong love affair with those mascots.
Well, it's got to be. Of course, like I said, I think anyone. I'm guessing that you're around my age.
I'm 36. Just turned 36.
Yeah. So like I said, when I see your Instagram, I just know, like, all right, he's one of my people.
Yeah,
this is fine
for sure.
And I think you were smart with your name of the podcast, because it's got Halloween right in the title.
Mm-hmm.
So that lets people know, you know, the original name of my show was Spooky Ass Shit.
Yeah, I remember that.
And you know, I like the title. I still like that title. Mm-hmm. But iTunes won't let you call your program. They don't care what you say on the actual episode, but they care what you put in their feed.
Right, sure.
So it had to be Spooky AS. And then it was like, well, the name of the show is Spooky Ass Shit, but you have to look up Spooky AS.
Yeah, now
and
you start to have to explain too much. And you know what? The search engine optimization around ass shit is probably not super great.
Yeah.
not to be overly strategic about it. And mine was completely by accident because I started the Instagram account like a year before, over a year before we started the podcast. So I'd been talking with my co-hosts. I mentioned Steve, and my other co-host is Meg, and Meg and I had actually been talking for probably a couple of years about wanting to do a horror podcast. And then we met Steve, and he had another podcast and was a horror fan, and we became fast friends, and then we ended up running with it. But yeah, I told him, I was like, hey, I already have this Instagram account that's like got a decent following. Maybe we should just make that the podcast Instagram, and I can still post spooky Halloween nostalgia and horror stuff, which is what I'm already posting. And then we can kind of pepper in, the stuff about the show. Well, the show took off a lot faster than we expected. So all of a sudden, it's mostly stuff about the show. But, I still post plenty of monster cereal and real Ghostbusters toys and things like that. So I get to scratch that itch.
You got to keep it interesting for yourself.
Sure.
And we actually have a topic we're going to discuss tonight, but we're going to talk about Brian. Like I said, I don't know the guy, so we're gonna chat a little bit, get to know each other a little bit.
It's like a blind date almost via Zoom.
Yeah.
Which there's probably people who are doing that right now. So that's
I'm sure there are.
Sounds like to an old married guy. That sounds like a quite a novelty, but there's probably a bunch of other people out there like, yeah, that's just my life.
Yeah, sign of the times, man. Yeah. But we are going to be discussing Halloween sitcom episodes. Now, we might mention a few by name and, might describe them a little bit, but really the point is to talk about just in general, what do we think makes for a good Halloween episode? And we have not discussed this ahead of time. I told Brian yesterday what the topic would be, and we're just going to wing it. And hopefully we're entertaining enough to do that.
Good old-fashioned organic conversation like regular-ass human beings.
Yeah. But before we do all that, let me get my shilling out of the way. So, of course, you can go to the show's website, spookyas.com, and there you can find almost each and every episode, including the ones no longer available on your favorite streaming service. You can also find links to our social media. We are at Spooky Ass Shit on Instagram, and we are it's facebook.com/spookytimes with Eric D. And see, it's already a pain in the ass because I changed the name. Yeah. So now I could try to change those other names, but then I kind of feel like, well, I mean, the show's only as popular as it is anyway. So I don't know, but it just seems like a giant hassle. I don't know. I'm an old man. I don't have time for all this stuff. I just do this for fun. Sure. Fun and a little bit of profit. And speaking of that, patreon.com/witchfinder, because of course Spooky Times is a Witchfinder production. And when you donate to the Patreon, you are donating basically to all of my performance aspects, whether it's the podcast, the street performing, the YouTube videos that I do, which there will be some based on the podcast in the future. And there are currently some based on the Witchfinder and my adventures in Salem and my neighbors in Salem and all that kind of fun stuff. Salem, Massachusetts, the one and only true Halloween capital of the world. You can find all that stuff on the website, but patreon.com/thewitchfinder if you would like to make your donations and contribute to the show and get some goodies. There's some exclusive stuff there, videos. I do creepy crafting on there, and I do photo dumps. Like I put a couple of photos of different things on Instagram, but if I have like a ton of photos, like my recent trip to your neck of the woods, Pittsburgh, where I did a zombie tour and a Mr. Rogers and all kinds of things. So all of those photos are available to all the Patreons. So you can check that out, patreon.com/thewitchfinder. Enough about that, Brian.
You know what? I just remembered too. I forgot you. I knew this, but I forgot leading into it that you're from Salem. Also home of one of my favorite breweries in the whole wide world. I'm a beer guy, and all three of us who are on our podcast work professionally in the beer industry and do spooky horror related stuff, on the side. And Notch Brewing in Salem, Massachusetts, is one of my absolute favorite breweries on the planet Earth.
Yeah, we got a lot of good ones around here, actually. Well, of course, Sam Adams.
Yeah.
Is
Hey, listen.
the most famous Massachusetts brewery.
Yeah,
but
they still do a great job.
yeah. I'm more of a whiskey man myself, but
I you know what? I am familiar with the brown party liquor. I have I have imbibed.
yeah, it's so well. Anyway,
A story for another show, perhaps.
yeah, I was like, no, never mind. We'll skip that. We'll skip that one. All right, enough about me, Brian. Tell me, we'll talk a little bit more about your podcast later, but let's just get your background. Tell me what. I mean, your podcast is called Halloween is Forever. Your Instagram account was called that before, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously Halloween is important to you. And again, looking at your decorations, of course, we are close to Halloween season, but I'm guessing that wall kind of looks like that throughout the year.
Yeah, that looks like that all year round. In fact, some of the stuff leaves my office and migrates throughout the rest of the house during spooky season. But yeah, this stuff is here all year round, and I'm looking at all the rest of the walls look very similar. Yeah.
All right, Brian. Well, take us back. Tell us where you grew up and, what Halloween was like for you growing up.
Yeah. I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, where I've recently, in the last few years, moved back to kind of greater Pittsburgh area, about a little bit northwest of the city. So in George Romero country, I live 10 minutes up the road from Evans City, where the original Night of the Living Dead was filmed. My wife is from Monroeville, which is, of course, the site of the Monroeville Mall and the setting for Dawn of the Dead. So we grew up in a very horror-rich environment. But I would say that the thing that really kind of set me off down the path of horror and Halloween and spooky and macabre type of things was in a lot of ways my late aunt, my Aunt Jill, who was the cool, fun aunt. You always have a cool, fun aunt or uncle growing up. A lot of us at least do. And I have wonderful memories of her. She only passed away maybe 10 years ago. But she was super into Halloween. Huge Halloween parties every year. She actually got married on Halloween night. I remember, dancing at her wedding. It was a Halloween-themed wedding, and skeletons and a big giant coffin to put the cards in and stuff. So she was actually a lot of. I have several pieces of Halloween decor that I put up, some of which are all year round, some of which are just around Halloween time, that were actually decorations from her wedding, 25 years ago or something. Well, not that long ago, 20 years ago. So she really got us into it. Me, my brother, and I have three cousins who were all around the same age. We used to do sleepovers at her house, and she would have candles that we'd light and do the Bloody Mary in the mirror, and she would take us out to spooky supposedly haunted bridges and graveyards and things around our area, and go to really ridiculous lengths to scare the crap out of us. And we used to do these big, enormous, once we got a little older and we could drive, we would do these big, enormous family scavenger hunts. So it'd be me, like I said, my brother, all my cousins, and then our significant others and things would have these, it would be like a 6-8 hour excursion where we'd have to drive all around the county visiting different spots, where she'd have literally games, set dressings in people's houses for us to come in and explore. And it was almost like an enormous countywide haunted escape room almost of sorts 15, 20 years ago. So she really drove the Halloween spirit deep with all of us, introduced me to many of my first horror movies. And it's always funny because I'm sure you've probably heard this 100 times, but people who are introduced to horror and spooky things at a young age go in one direction or the other. You either become obsessed with it or repelled by it and terrified by it. Me and my brother really became obsessed with it and became huge fans, and still to this day are huge horror movie fans and share that interest. My cousins hate it. When I have nothing to do with it. I remember staying at my one cousin's house, and I'll pick on him. I'm sure he's not going to listen. He doesn't really listen to podcasts or anything. I'm sure he would listen to a spooky podcast. He hates that type of stuff. But He was a grown man. He's the oldest of us. He was living. He bought a house. We were staying in his house. He bought Paranormal Activity on DVD. We watched it one night. The next morning, we woke up, went downstairs to make breakfast. I opened up the trash can. He had thrown the DVD away. That's how scared he was of the movie. He didn't want it in his house anymore. So they went in very much the opposite direction. But yeah, my Aunt Jill was very instrumental in implanting those horror and Halloween seeds.
Nice. Yeah, I have a similar story. I won't repeat myself too much for my listeners' sake, but hopefully some of your listeners are joining us on this episode.
Yeah, sure.
So just to give my backstory a little bit, I grew up, my father passed away when I was very young. Mm-hmm. So I grew up with just my mom running the household, and she loved Halloween and she liked horror movies, but she was a little specific about it. She loved like things with like little creatures, from the Leprechaun to Chucky,
sure.
To Puppet Master. She especially loved the Leprechaun. That was her favorite.
Yeah.
But like anything like that, she loved. And she could mess with slashers and that kind of thing too. But yeah, and I just remember back in the old days, kids, you used to be able to rent videos at the grocery store. And we used to go on Saturday afternoons and we'd pick out, a horror movie. And we'd watch a horror movie together, even when I was like a little kid, because she knew I could handle it,
Yeah.
And actually, she's the one who got me accidentally into being like obsessed with Halloween episodes of TV shows.
Sure.
Because in 1986, she made a tape of all the Halloween specials and all the Halloween episodes that aired that year.
Yeah.
And
I've got a similar tape.
Yeah, and I still have that tape. I've watched it at least once, and very often more than once a year. Mm-hmm. Still works. It's in a little bit rougher shape now, so
Sure.
Tracking isn't perfect all the time and that kind of thing.
Right.
I have digitized it, but it's not the same. I like to watch it on the original tape once a year, and now I only do it once a year because I'm trying to kind of preserve it as long as I can.
Sure.
But yeah, no, I love that tape. That's why the Kate and Allie Halloween episode, Halloween 2, even though there was no Halloween 1 as far as I know on Kate and Allie, is one of my all-time favorite Halloween sitcom episodes, even though it's not one that you're going to find on like anybody else's list. But I say that's just because people aren't paying attention. But
it's a hidden gem. Yeah, very, very super coincidental. Similar thing with the tapes. We have like a Christmas tape and a Halloween tape that we watched all the time when we were little. That had Garfield Halloween special on it, and all of these wonderful specials on it, and just stuff taped off TV. And we still have it. I still have those tapes. I remember one of the things that really was so. Two things. One thing you mentioned, Leprechaun was one of the first ones that we rented as, I have to guess. I was maybe like 9-ish or something like that. So my brother's a couple years younger. My one cousin's the same age. My woman's a little bit older. That was one of the first ones I remember going to the video store and coming back and being like, all right, we're going to sit down and watch a horror movie. And it was a VHS of Leprechaun that we probably rented from the Eagle Video, which is a Giant Eagle, our grocery store chain out here that has their little video store in it. But the other thing that she got for us in a Halloween kind of treat bag one year, she got me a VHS tape of John Carpenter's Halloween 1978, and my brother got Halloween 2 in his, and we had these VHS that she bought at like Big Lots or something, and we watched them over and over and over again, and I wore that the original Halloween out. And then finally, when my wife and I, not long after we met, which was just over, this will be our 10th wedding anniversary this year, when we were dating, we first moved in together, we were watching it on her VCR, because she had one of those little TVs that had a VCR built in, and it ate my tape of Halloween, and I was devastated. I spooled it back up and I kept it, but it's like it won't, it's in really rough shape now. And I've since collected, I'm looking at a bunch of my VHS tapes. I probably have 3 or 4 other copies of Halloween now, but that was my original copy. And I thought that night, I think my wife was like, why is this guy so connected to this VHS tape? Like, he is about to jump off the balcony because this VHS tape broke. But yeah, I can, yeah, those, man, they're treasures. You don't want anything to happen to them, right?
Yeah, no, well, especially mine, because my mom, like I said, she's passed away. She made it for me. It's got her handwriting on it, you know. And trust me, I have scanned the hell out of that thing. So even if something does happen, I'll have digital backups of every piece of it, but still not the same.
Sure.
And of course, it's just the vibe and nostalgia of like, and the ritual of loading. Oh, here comes my cat.
Oh yeah, my dog's right here at my feet too.
The ritual of putting the tape in the VCR and hearing those noises and watching that fuzz and that kind of thing. You know, these kids today, they might not understand, you know, in their digital world. But, you know, tangible physical experiences mean something. And I'm sure that even young people do understand that. It's so weird to me. Like, okay, so I know I'm all over the place. But when...
No, I love it.
When we're talking about Halloween sitcoms... Now, my mom started that tape in 1986. And I can't say that I religiously taped Halloween episodes every year after that.
Sure.
But I did for a lot of them.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, my mom had instilled in me that you cut out the commercials. So I have tape after tape of like first airings of Halloween episodes, Halloween specials, none of the commercials.
Yeah.
In fact,
and who would have thought later on you wish you had those commercials, right?
Totally. And not only that, but I'm a big fan of DinosaurDracula.com.
Yeah.
And,
he's great. We're Patreon of the Purple Stuff podcast as well. I love their show.
Right. And I've I sent him a copy of my 1986 tape. I sent it to Matt, and I don't want to make it sound like we're buddies or anything. That's literally the extent of our relationship. I said, "Hey,
Sure,
I got this tape.
I got you.
Do you want a copy of it?" He said, "Yes." I sent it to him. He said, "Thanks." And then I said, "You know, I'm sorry, my mom cut out most of the commercials, but there are a few on there." And then also, I'm like, I have VHS tapes. I think I usually cut out commercials, but I'll look through them and see what I did because I used to tape on VHS. And then, of course, I got a TiVo. So I have not one, not two, but 3 TiVos full of Halloween episodes that, of course, I don't know where the cables are. I don't know where the remotes are. But once I find all that stuff, I told Matt I'd go through those and try to find more Halloween commercials for him, even though they're not quite as vintage as he might normally use. I also have, I also had a direct like DVD burner, like you could transfer something from the tape to the burner, or like from live TV and burn it right onto the disc. So I have stacks of like Halloween episodes on DVD. I don't even know what I have anymore. There's so many.
That's rad.
So this is just something that's, you know, in. And then every once in a while, I'll just go through those stacks and pick one out and toss it in and be like, okay, this looks like about 1998. And I'm watching all these Halloween episodes of like King of Queens and like, you know, whatever else.
Sure.
So it's a nice little trip back. But getting back to what I was saying about young people today, I think one thing that I wonder about with them is what and how are they going to be nostalgic? Because for you and me, I'm sure, you know, it's a wonderful feeling to like have not really thought about something or maybe you've thought about it, but you haven't seen it anywhere for years and years and years and years.
Yeah.
But now, if you miss something, you just Google it and there it is.
That's true for the most part. Yeah. It's wild because it's funny how things, because I think people who grew up in our era where it's like if you missed something on TV, you truly missed it, right? You weren't going to be able to find it. And now everyone takes for granted this idea of you never miss anything. You can always Google it. But I think we're starting to learn that that's not true, that things do actually go away. And it's not necessarily a function of they can't be saved as much as there's just so much media out there that things become things that maybe are very special or nostalgic or connect with, just a small group of people for whatever reason. they almost become, dispensable a little bit, and people don't take the care to preserve them in any way. I think back to only a few years ago to Vine, for example, right? People are, make big mega mixes of all these Vine videos from, 5, 8 years ago, or 5, 7, I don't know when it was, 7 years ago. And they're preserved in some capacity, but there's still a lot of stuff that people had really big, followings via Vine or YouTube or whatever that, they got taken down, or, a podcast that's no longer, people aren't paying attention to, or people aren't paying for the hosting or anything anymore. There was a show, and now the name of it is escaping me, but I remember, probably 6 or 7 years ago, there was a show that I used to listen to all the time, and this is when I lived in Wisconsin, and I'm going to try to ramble until I can go and find what the name of this show was, but here it is. It is called the Everyday is Halloween podcast. It's horror guy Keenan's Everyday is Halloween podcast. He hasn't uploaded an episode since like Halloween 2019, where he came back and put a couple other episodes out there. But even before then, there was almost no episodes since 2018. So now I go and try to play it. It doesn't seem like they're hosted anymore. But these were great shows, and they're only from 3-4 years ago. And some of them were from even further back into 2016, 2015. But I think it's just the fact that there's so much media now that things are just going to get not necessarily lost, but just forgotten in the incredible shift of different platforms and things like that. I hope that's not true, but I feel like people are going to start to learn that the hard way.
Yeah.
But that's also the same reason why I, try to make it a point to collect physical media if I can. Because people are always like, hey, why do you have so many VHS tapes? It's the worst format ever. I'm like, because, like you said, all the clicks and twitches and scratches and all those things of it popping into the VHS, like that is, it's not terrifically dissimilar to vinyl. You know what I mean? All the pops and hisses in a vinyl tape. I know. I was just at my parents' house recently, and I have a VHS. I have a VCR that I watch stuff on at my house. My parents have the same VCR for 20 plus years, right? I know the sound of their VCR. When you put a tape in, it sounds totally different than my VCR. So even that little bit of audible nostalgia of just those clicks that are so slightly different than mine, that's something that clicking on a YouTube video, you're not gonna get that same feel, right?
Which isn't to say digital media today, that's a good point that you brought up. It has a charm of its own. I don't mean to make it sound like, oh, we were so much better back in the day, but it was different. That's all I'm saying. It's not like when I talk about the Halloween that almost wasn't a Halloween special that we did 2 episodes about, actually. And for a long time, I seemed like the only person in the world who gave a fuck about that Halloween special. And then the internet came around, and I learned there was a different ending than what I was used to. There were 2 more scenes that I had not seen because they did not air on TV. Sorry, I just got a really loud update on this computer. And it kind of blew my mind. And then that there's other people talking about it. I can tell you, based on the download numbers, it's still not all that popular, but sure. It is with me, and that's what matters,
Right.
As far as my show goes anyway. So I think it's just going to be hard for them to have that blast of nostalgia. But on the other hand, thank God that there are freaks and weirdos like you and me out there. Now, you and I might not save every Halloween-related podcast or YouTube video that we find, but probably somebody out there is, And
oh yeah, there's got to be someone who's even more diehard, you know what I mean, than us on this stuff. So.
Yeah. So 20 years from now, they'll have our recordings when we stop or whatever, and they'll be like, "Oh, I remember these guys. Yeah, they were good. Let's listen to that." And someone will put it on YouTube or whatever the thing is at the time.
Sure.
Okay, so why don't we get to it? Let's see. Halloween sitcom episodes. Now, something that you kind of mentioned earlier was that when you miss something on TV back in the day, I think it's hard, and you're a few years younger than me, so I'm not sure how much of this you might remember too, because we kind of grew up in that weird phase between Gen X and millennials. I know that technically you and I would both be considered millennials.
Yeah.
But
early millennials. Yeah.
Elder millennials, I think is...
Sure. I like that. That sounds wiser. I like that.
Yeah. And I don't know. I feel maybe it's because I grew up with siblings and I just was way more influenced by like the Gen X side. Like I watched MTV like constantly growing up. Like almost from the beginning with my older brother. And I was watching like, slasher movies that I shouldn't have been watching when I was like real little because of my brothers.
Sure.
I think it sounds so antiquated, but I think young people need to realize it wasn't that long ago that we didn't have the internet. We didn't have these things.
I told, when I told my kid, and I have two girls that are 5 and 7. My oldest just turned 7 this past weekend. And when I told them I didn't have a computer growing up, because they have tablets in school, and stuff. And my 5-year-old, she knows exactly how to use like every function of her tablet for school. And we even try to, listen, not passing any judgment on anybody, but we try to limit their, screen time as much as possible. And they're both like very creative kids. They love to, they're active. They play sports and do art and stuff like that. So it's not like a big thing where we have to take it from them. But even then, she knows exactly how to use all of that stuff. I told her that I didn't have a computer until I was 12, and we didn't have a home computer until I was like 12 or 13, and I didn't have a cell phone until my sophomore year of college. I was very much a late adopter of a cell phone. I didn't get a cell phone until like 2005, 2006. So yeah, they were like, then how did that work? And I was like, I had a phone in my dorm room.
Yeah.
Know what I mean?
Like I said, it sounds so antiquated, and it is now, I guess. But one of the things that I think about when I think about these Halloween specials, like you said, if you missed it, you missed it. I mean, you might, if you got lucky, you could set up a tape recorder with a timer and, maybe get it that way if you could figure out those damn things. Sure. But you had to look in this thing called the TV Guide. Mm-hmm. And I remember getting so excited when the October issues would come in, because you could look through it and find, okay, they're going to show Halloween on this night. They're going to show Charlie Brown on this night. They're going to show, and you could find all the things. You'd highlight them and you'd let people know, like, hey, I need the TV this night because I'm recording this Halloween episode, or I'm recording that. And, my family was pretty well understood, but I was the youngest, so sometimes I got outvoted.
Sure.
But like you said, it's not like you could go online or onto iTunes or Amazon or whatever and pay $2 for the episode that you missed, or find it on a streaming service. It was gone as far as you knew.
Yeah, I remember
until summer at the earliest, when they might show a rerun.
I remember if there was something else that somebody else wanted to tape the same time you had to tape something, I would have to call my grandparents, who lived about 5 minutes away, and say, can you tape this for me? Because Dad wants to tape something else. And whether or not my grandparents were able to figure out how to successfully schedule the recording was a coin flip at best. So you were pretty much like, oh God, I got to put it in Grandma and Pap's hands. This is not going to go well. So you'd go up there and check and be like, damn it didn't tape. They screwed it up. They set it for AM instead of PM or whatever.
Or they just didn't want to watch whatever the hell you were trying to get them to tape. And they're like, oh,
Right.
I don't know. These things confuse me. Maybe this is
or
wrong.
Or they fell asleep at 7 o'clock and forgot to set it up.
Yeah. At different times, man. But it sounds like we're talking about ancient history, but neither you nor I are that old,
No, certainly not. I mean, I'm a young spring. I'm spry.
Yeah. So, all right. But we did grow up in the time of classic sitcoms, and it was very common for them to have Halloween-themed episodes. So,
sure.
Let's talk about it. When the internet did become a thing, one of the things I was so excited about was being able to go back to generations of television before what I grew up
Yeah.
with,
Sure,
and find
sure.
the Halloween episodes. Now, some TV shows you could see, like Bewitched, The Addams Family,
Yeah.
they were still on when
They
I
were on
was a
Nick at
kid.
Night and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we knew we would after Snick was over, you went right into Nick at Night and you got to watch Mr. Ed, or whatever, or Dragnet or whatever.
Yeah. And shows like that would have some cool Halloween episodes, but then there's other things that, you had no clue about. And old, 70s Halloween specials that I was too young to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wasn't alive in the 70s, so
Sure.
I wasn't born. So I didn't get to
Yeah.
see them. So, unless they were happened to get shown again sometimes those things would pop up on a Saturday afternoon, like, long after, like Witches Night Out. I remember seeing that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But these sitcoms were something special, and it seems like sitcoms very often used it as an excuse to break out of like the normal episode. A lot of times it's kind of like a fantasy that happens.
Yeah, it's like this is going to be the reality for this one episode, but when you tune in next week, none of this will have happened.
Yeah, and some sitcoms, it's like a dream or something like that, or like the sitcom, The Simpsons, which I'm not really talking animated shows tonight, but of course The Simpsons is a classic.
Oh yeah, The Simpsons,
Halloween.
Bob's Burgers. You could talk about
Yeah.
a whole episode with that, right?
But The Simpsons is a prime example of like their Halloween episodes have nothing to do with the rest of the series, and the continuity isn't going to matter. It's not going to continue.
Right.
Ned Flanders isn't going to stay a dead zombie next week.
Right.
So, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know the best way to do this. I don't know if you want to talk about maybe some favorite Halloween episodes, or just some key ingredients that you think are necessary for a good Halloween episode.
Yeah, we can do both. The first thing that I just like jotted down really quickly, like what are the things that really suck me into a Halloween episode? Because we actually coincidentally, I think you and I talked about this. We just did an episode 2 months ago where we did favorite sitcom Halloween episodes in one of our big like showdown episodes on my podcast. So we each picked one, and I was the only one who went back to the 90s. The other two did kind of modern ones. And so I went back and revisited a ton of these, and I kind of was like, okay, what are the things that really suck me into a particular episode? And I kind of came down to a tight list of 3. One is it's got to have tons of Halloween imagery. It's kind of like, and this is obviously a brand new movie, but it's one that I posted something about recently and was blown away by the amount of love / just vitriol that came out in response to this movie, which was Adam Sandler's Hubie Halloween from last year.
Oh, which I starred in, yes, of course.
Yeah, which was set in Salem. And were you actually in the movie?
Yes, I was.
Was you? Oh, that's amazing.
And
what were you? Now you got to tell me. What were you? What was your role in the movie?
I was the very similar yet legally separate Randy Man Macho Savage.
That's incredible.
It's one of those.
Oh wow.
I was just an extra, so you blink and you miss me.
But I know what you're talking about when you said that. I feel like I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's in the scene that was not that you would know watching the movie, but it was filmed in the big park in Salem Common. And the mayor's apple bobbing.
Yeah,
and,
yes, yeah.
And
it's George Wallace, right?
It's George Wallace, yeah.
Yeah.
And I am right behind him, dressed as Randy Man Macho Savage, standing next to a little mime girl, who I did not know but became friends with. I did a whole episode about this, so some people have heard me talk about it before. And if you haven't, if you're new to the show,
well, now
you
I
can
got to
go back and listen to that episode.
And I'm also going to put it right on as soon as we're done, because I got to see. Because I feel like when you say this, I'm like, I remember pointing out to my wife the
it's
because I'm a huge Macho Man fan.
Yeah, me too.
So
it's real brief. So I'm joking, of course, when I say that I starred in it. But
but I feel like I remember it. Maybe it's just me, connecting the dots in my head. But I feel like I remember it. But anyway.
But I will say though, I don't know if I mentioned this on the actual episode, so I'll mention it here. There was more to that scene. They cut out a little bit more. Because George Wallace goes apple bobbing, and then he turns and he sees Kevin James, and he goes over and he talks to Kevin James. George Wallace, by the way, very nice, very friendly, joked around with everybody, You know, you could
He
talk
seems
to
like a
him.
freaking gem. Yeah.
Kevin James gave off a definite like, don't talk to me, don't look at me
That
vibe.
makes sense.
Maybe that's my
Yeah.
own interpretation because I didn't actually talk to the guy.
Sure.
But that's, you know, he was 10 feet away from me, and that's the vibe I got.
Yeah.
And but anyway, after George Wallace starts to go, Randy Man Macho Savage is the next apple bobber.
Oh, really? You're in line after him.
Yeah, I did a whole thing where I was going up there. Yeah.
The cream rises to the top.
Yeah, well, I can't steal the catchphrases, so instead of "ooh,
No, you don't
yeah,"
want to cease and desist
Yeah.
from Vince McMahon, right?
Yeah, so instead of the "oh yeah," it's the "okay." So, I always thought that would be a good idea, like a knockoff wrestling brand that was like close, you know?
Yeah. It's the Big Lots version of WWF.
Yeah. What you gonna do, sibling? You know, or, what's
I'm
gonna
so
happen, brother? Stuff like that.
What do you anticipate, brother?
Yeah.
I love that. I'm so glad I brought that up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So anyway, sorry, I interrupted your
No,
thought.
that was a fantastic tangent. I'm so happy that I brought that up. But yeah, the reason I brought it up was less exciting, but is that movie, right? You know, no one's winning any Oscars for the performance of the screenwriting. It's just festive fun, the movie, and what I absolutely love about it, and I love Adam Sandler, so unapologetically love almost every Adam Sandler movie. I grew up watching Adam Sandler movies, but it's the Halloween imagery. They're so like the Halloween decor set dressing budget on that movie had to have been wild. There was and I get it. It's not giant expensive set pieces. It's just die cuts and lights and pumpkins. But like it just was so detailed. There was so much of it in the background. It's just like eye candy for Halloween heads, right? So that was one of the things that I said you got to have in a sitcom episode. You got to have in a Halloween episode or a Halloween special is a lot of Halloween imagery in the background, in the foreground, wherever. The other thing is...
hold on, before you move on from that.
Yeah.
Because I totally agree with you. And one thing, again, going back to Kate and Allie here, one thing I love about the Kate and Allie Halloween is that they have these like 70s and 80s die cut decorations up. And it's like they were just... You saw those all the time. Like your teacher would hang them up in school.
Yeah.
Actually,
they'd be on that like back chalkboard that she never used.
Yeah. And of course, B Steel is the big company that everybody knows that made those. And the other one that people might not remember the name of, but the company that made the second most of those things is Dennison. And Dennison was actually located in Framingham, Massachusetts, which is right next to Ashland, Massachusetts, which was my hometown.
Oh, wow, cool.
So I feel like that's a little... And as far as I know, I'm going to do some more research in this, but I think that Dennison was the first company to ever sell Halloween costumes.
I think I've heard that before on another podcast or read it somewhere or something. I remember like the early... Like and maybe it's... Was Dennison the first ones to make blow molds too?
No, because they were like a paper company. So even their costumes, like that's only...
I might be getting two companies mixed up.
Yeah,
here.
that's only in the strictest sense because it's not like they were sending you like, here's a Batman costume or something like that. But they had a catalog that told you like, here's a costume you could make using our products. So order these products and we'll send you this and we'll send you this little mask that goes with it and stuff like that. So
were they the company that did like the entertaining guide kind of thing for
the
Halloween?
Boogie Books? Yeah,
the Boogie Books. That's
Yep.
it. I couldn't remember the names. Yes, that's what I'm getting the Boogie Books and the story of the blow molds mixed up. But yes.
So, and just again going back to Hubie Halloween, I am not the world's biggest Adam Sandler fan, and I just went. It was literally the day of that I decided to go to this like cattle call they had for extras. I was like, hey, it's a Halloween thing. They're filming it in Salem. That's pretty. It's pretty awesome, you know. And
you're gonna regret not going to that.
Yeah, so I said, all right, let me go, and I went in my Randy Man outfit, and got hired, obviously, and then they, but you know, honestly, like I said, you could go back and listen to the episode. The whole thing was a pain in the ass, and it really wasn't fun. But what makes it worth it is two things. One is that when we got to the shooting location, it looked like a Halloween special.
Oh, it has to, right? There was so much set dressing.
It looked like you want every Halloween party to look like, and they never do.
Yeah.
Like even the ones in Salem, which are pretty fancy. But it's not quite the same. And it's like, this was like I walked into a Halloween episode or Halloween. Because you always watch those shows, and here's one of my things. They have Halloween parties. And the costumes are like crazy over the top. And you don't see that in real life.
No, never. We were just talking about this on our episode about Halloween sitcoms, where we were like, Steve, and spoiler alert for those of you who haven't listened to that episode, it's not as minor. I don't think it's that important of a spoiler, but Steve picks the episode called Epidemiology of the show Community. And that was one of the things we applauded about it, was for the most part, the costumes were very realistic. Because you remember the stuff like Tim Taylor, used to, Tim the Toolman Taylor would have these like costumes like, that cost $500. No suburban dad put that much effort into their costume.
Yes, but I like that.
Yes, I mean, it had its time, it had its place, but I do sometimes appreciate that, hey, these are like realistic costumes that I
don't mind that either, but I do like, because that's how Halloween should be. And to be honest with you, that's the kind of effort I put into my costumes. Now, they might not look that as expensive, but if you look at my Instagram, you'll see I've had some pretty good ones.
Yeah.
But this actually kind of cost me in my personal life.
Okay.
This obsession with Halloween episodes and wanting to live in a Halloween episode and go live in a Halloween party of a Halloween episode. Because, as an adult, when you go to Halloween parties, my thought was, I want to look cool. I want to have a good costume. Like one year I was Beetlejuice and I went to a big party and people liked it and everything. But I got there and I realized I was one of only 2 people who went all out.
Yeah.
Like full costume, full makeup. Everybody else was dressed to get laid.
Yeah. See, I hate that. That's one of my other 3 things is like, you got to take it seriously. And I'm not one of those people that like you have to spend $1 million or you have to put 100 hours into making your costume, but like don't half-ass it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Don't be the guy. I used to hate growing up, and I'm sure I was that jerk kid 1 year, 2 years, or whatever when I was a teenager. But don't be that person that just puts on a hoodie and a $5 CVS Jason mask. You know what I mean? I hate that. Like just the terrible effort.
Yeah, when I was a kid, that always bugged me when my friends did it. I have a Halloween picture somewhere where I'm in like a full devil outfit and I got the face paint on, I got horns glued to my head. And 2 of my friends are with me. One of them is wearing a yellow raincoat with a Jason mask, and the other one is wearing a black hoodie with a Jason mask. And I'm like, guys.
The Haunted Hangover guys just talked about that really, which I was cracking up. I was listening to their episode, and they were saying, like, that's the classic, like, juvenile delinquent kid who doesn't give a shit. You just get that $5 Jason mask from Rite Aid, and you wear a hoodie. Yeah.
So, that brings up one of my pet peeves about Halloween episodes. A bad Halloween episode is a Halloween episode where they talk about it being Halloween. They talk about going to a Halloween party. Yeah. They talk about getting costumes, but then we don't get to go to the party.
Yeah, it's just like it's almost an episode that could have happened at any other time, and they just like inserted some lines about Halloween to maybe throw some imagery in there. I don't know, but yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
I feel that like so much.
Some episodes, my wife is a huge diehard fan, and if she listens to this, she's gonna throw a brick at my head because she's a diehard Office, episode, the series The Office, and I like The Office as well, but she dominates in Office trivia. She knows everything about the show. And I always thought that was kind of what their Halloween episodes were like. Like, yeah, they would dress up a little bit, but like some of them I was like, it just was kind of like everyone in the office is going through the motions of Halloween rather than actually the episode having something spooky happen. I like an episode, like you said, where it's like there's no continuity because everyone is in supernatural danger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or there's a murderer on the loose and you're like, wait, this is not the tone of the rest of the show. Yeah. That's the ones I like.
I'm telling you, man, I think you can find it on YouTube. You got to look up Kate and Allie, Halloween 2.
I already wrote it down.
All right.
I'm checking it out. Yeah.
And I want to hear back from you about it.
Yeah, I'm going to check it out.
But yeah, because so I like elaborate costumes, but I understand what you're saying. Sometimes it's nice to have a dose of reality. As long as there are costumes, I can be satisfied.
Sure.
And as long as it's not like the whole episode, and it's not even just Halloween parties. It could be anything. Like, I can't wait till we go to the prom. And, the whole episode is building up about going to the prom or, like whatever. And then they don't go to the prom. Like, or they don't show it, or they come back after. It reminds me of an old David Spade stand-up joke where he talks about how, like, you'd watch like these like teen skin movies, but they'd show them on USA Up All Night and they'd cut out all the parts. Like, oh, what's this? A nudist camp? Well, let's go. And then they show them driving in, and then the next thing they show is them driving out, and they go, oh, we had a great time at that nudist camp. Boy, that was crazy. Anyway. Yeah. And it's the same thing with these. It's like, wasn't that crazy? What happened at the Halloween party? Yeah, that was crazy. Anyway, let's go to bed now.
I do love when like Rhonda Shear or Gilbert Gottfried would then point that out, though. It would be like, we didn't even see anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, that's another lost classic, the USA Up All Night that I'm sure.
Oh, love USA Up
we
All
watched
Night.
A lot of horror movies, bad horror movies on.
Yeah. I used to sneak down the stairs after, when I was made to go to bed and lay at the top of the stairs looking down the stairs into the living room. And then if my dad fell asleep on the recliner, I would like army crawl down the stairs and lay on the floor beside the recliner until he heard me and woke up and told me to go back to bed. But I would watch Rhonda Shear and Gilbert Gottfried on there.
Oh, yeah. I would literally stay up, till all hours watching that stuff.
Yeah.
Because I was a lonely middle schooler without a lot of parental supervision, and
Sure.
Luckily that's really the only kind of trouble I got into was staying up late and watching bad movies. So I guess my mom did pretty all right. And we're going to pause part 1 of this episode right there. We're going to pick up the conversation exactly where we left off, and don't forget, check out the website spookyas.com. You can listen to every episode, and you can find links to the social media. We are at spookyassshit on Instagram. And don't forget, you can join the Patreon, patreon.com/witchfinder. And you get kind of exclusive goodies. I haven't checked with them yet, but I'm going to check with Brian and see if I can post some of the video of our call. And that way you can kind of see the walls that we talk about in this episode and get a look at our goofy faces. Until next time, don't be a fool.
Spooky Times is a Witchfinder production.